Hello and welcome. You join me from a very busy RAF Valley today to show you how to cold start the Just Flight Hawk T.Mk.1A. Oh, there goes a typhoon. Come and join me in the cockpit. Now, oddly enough, the start of the cold start is from the back instructor's cockpit. So if we look down to our left hand side, and just for the record, I do know that sometimes NVIDIA recording sometimes pushes my cursor away from where it's actually pointing, so just look for the flashing switches or gauges when I go to switch them on. So we're going to start with the engine start down here, and we're going to switch that to the on position. Make sure that the cover for the tailplane trim is down. Switch on anti-skid, and then we're going to make sure that both the geared buttons here are out and that the control for the undercarriage is transferred to the front cockpit by pressing this red button. And then we're going to make sure that the flaps here are the switch is in the central position so that the front cockpit is in control where it says pupil. Making sure that there are no lights switched on in the back, as they are not needed, and then coming down to switch on for the oxygen supply. Moving forward, we want to make sure that the front cockpit has oxygen as well, so we'll switch that on with that lever there. We'll close the rudder guard, and now we're going to test our batteries. So battery 1 here, battery 2 here. Switch on battery 1. I'm going to look at this gauge here and make sure that it's reading around about 23 volts. We can silence the alarm here. And we'll switch battery 1 off and switch on battery 2, and we're going to do the same. So make sure that it's reading around about 23 volts and silence the alarm yet again. Now we're going to switch on both batteries, and now we have an electrical supply to the aircraft. Now we want to let everybody know that the cockpit is a working environment and that people are in there, so we'll switch on the nav lights. From there we're going to make sure that the CCS amplifier is in norm, and then we are going to make sure that the parking brake is pulled, which it is. Right, from there we are going to open the low pressure fuel cock, switch on the fuel pump. Going to make sure that the high pressure fuel cock is closed by advancing the throttle backwards and forwards, and if it doesn't move, then we are good to go. You've got to make sure that that is in the closed position, otherwise you will not be able to start the engine. Check that the ignition switch is in normal, anti-skid is off, and that our standby UHF is in main. Next we want to make sure that the emergency flap and undercarriage pull levers are in their normal position, that the down selector for the undercarriage is pushed in, we have all three greens, and that the flaps are in the up position. We've got to the UHF panel here and switch to both and leaving it in manual. Next we're going to come down to our attitude and heading reference system here, and we're going to turn that to slave. Click that back on. We're going to go up to the accelerometer and make sure that the positive and negative G needles are central. We're going to make sure that the ILS marker light comes on when we push the button in. UHF is in normal position, and the standby instrument battery is also in the normal position. Coming over to the oxygen supply here, want to make sure that we have over half a tank. If you have less than half, then you can come down to the electronic flight bag here, and you can refill here in the equipment section at the bottom. We want to make sure that the oxygen supply is actually flowing, so the blinker is going, that's all good. Now we want to make sure we've got enough fuel for our journey, which we have, and that the gas turbine starter and rotation indicators are black. Coming down to our central warning panel, open the flap, flick the switch, let go, make sure all the lights illuminate, turn off the alarm there, and then from there we want to come down here and if it's a dark day, which the light isn't fantastic at the moment, we can switch the panel light on and use the dimmers for our central port and starboard sections of the cockpit. We want to come down here and make sure the selector is in VHF, which it is, and that the receiving and intercom volume knobs are turned fully clockwise. Next, VHF UHF panel, we're going to turn to transmit, receive and guard, TR plus G, so we'll do that now. Oops, it's gone a bit too far, and we're going to keep it in manual. Next, come down to our IFF panel, and we're going to flick that to standby and make sure test pass disappears off the screen, and it has. Next is the tactical air navigation panel. Now there are a couple of tables in the manual that that have converted frequencies into TACAN codes or channel codes, so you'll have to do a bit of work there. I will do another video on this, sort of converting where you want to go into channels and which mode it goes into, but pretending that we have one, we're going to switch that to transmit receive. We'll leave it on 42X. Coming down to the ILS panel, this is where we input our ILS frequencies, and what we would want to do is flick up to ILS. We can use it for variable omnidirectional radials, so if you like chasing VORs in a traditional sense without using a tactical air navigation, you can do it via this panel here, and it will show up here, but for this purpose we will use ILS. Next, we want to make sure that this switch here is in TACAN. It's also used for the ILS as well, but keeping that in TACAN. We're going to come down to our cabin airflow and make sure that is in auto, 6 o'clock, which it is, and that we switch it on to normal. Right, that's the fiddly switches all done, and now we can actually get on with starting the engine. So we'll come over here. Oh no, wait, before we do that we are going to close the canopy and lock it. Now we'll go down to our engine start switch and switch that to on. We want to warn people outside that we are about to start, so we're going to turn our anti-collision, both lower and upper, down to red. From there we make sure that nobody's around and that our equipment is taken away, so using the electronic flight bag in the equipment section, take away chocks, the covers and flags and the steps. Okay, now we want to find the gas turbine starter switch, which is this tiny little switch here on the throttle. Push that in. It takes about 20 seconds for this little thing to start up. It's basically the Hawk's version of an auxiliary power unit. Once it's up and running, the GTS or gas turbine starter indicator here will turn green, and then we can start our next phase of the startup. Okay, so we have green. Now we can come down here and we can flick start. And you can see the engine is rotating, and we have RPMs on the gauge there. Once it gets to about 15 to 20%, we want to open the high pressure fuel cock here by clicking this, and now it's advanced. We can now move the throttle as well now, and as you see it's past the 20% mark, so we know that the engine's running proper. You do have to make sure that that high pressure fuel cock is in the off position and that you can't move the throttle. If that's the case, if you press the GTS button, it just won't climb to 20% where it's needed. So you have to make sure in your checks that is off before you can press the GTS button. Right, now you can see that all the flags have disappeared from the instruments and most of the lights have gone out, apart from hydraulics 2. Now if you've flown the T.45 Charlie by India Fox Techo, you'll be familiar with this. If you look down here at the hydraulic 2 gauge, you'll notice that it's showing 0 bar. Now to get this to read or register, we need to press the hide 2 reset button. Click that, you can see that the gauge is now climbing and the light will extinguish once it's at a satisfactory level. Okay, so now that we're up and running, we want to do a couple more checks before we can taxi. So we want to make sure that our air brake is functioning. Now I'm clicking the air brake extend button, nothing's happening because while the undercarriage is down it's cancelled out. So quite simply because if you're coming into land and you've got the air brake down, you're gonna have a strike. So that function isn't available with the undercarriage down. So to bypass that, we have the test switch here, and now we can extend, which it shows here, and if we retract it, you can see that it's gone back up again, and you can see the indicator here. If we retract it, the indicator has now gone black. Next we're going to switch on our pitot heat, which is located here. Switch our flaps to mid, and then we will zero out our barometric altimeters to AGL instead of ASL. So we're going to rotate these anti-clockwise until we're zeroed out. This one and this one here. Okay, so there we go. We're up running. All our systems that we need are there and ready to be used. We have radios, we have navigation. Yeah, we're all good to go. The only thing you need to do now is use this button here, switch on your taxi landing light, and you're ready to taxi. So there you go. That is cold starting the Just Flight Hawk T.Mk.1A. This was made using the manual and trying to remember it the best I possibly can. So if I have missed anything, which I don't think I have, I do apologise. But I've been studying this thing for so long. It's like the saying that Homer says, every time I learn something new it pushes some old stuff out. So yeah, I apologise if I have forgotten anything, but I will do a taxi, takeoff, flight and landing video also. But for now, I hope this has helped you out. Thank you for watching, and as always, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.